touching things about this journey. All of you guys reach out. I learned a new function thanks to Stellar. I didn't know you could call each other on the, if you're following each other, you can call each other on the X platform. I did not know that. So my phone just starts ringing and it's Stellar. And I'm like, I got to go. And so I answered and she's like, you're live. So anyway, again, that's so much going on. All right. So Bridget has been working her butt off behind the scenes trying to teach an old dog new tricks. So she has found a program that we are going to try. I already have something saved. And basically, instead of trying to come up with a long thread, not that I have any problem doing that, obviously. What I did was I took an article that someone had wrote that I had open that I was going to do something with. So what I decided to do is cut and paste that article into thread segments and see how this program works. Well, the reason why I was a few minutes late is because I got so carried away with this. I posted the entire article and then looked down and realized you can only do 30 at a time. Well, we know my threads are always longer than 30. And so the whole trick that Bridget had showed me in order to be able to break them into 30 pieces each, which for some reason does better. It doesn't break the thread and all of that other stuff. So apparently, Bridget, that is a thing because even these other programs limit you to 30. So I had to I had to delete like half of them and redo them all. And so I have the first segment of it ready. And then what I will do is after we get off today, I'm going to post it. And I think you'll really enjoy the article. And I, as always, I will put the citations at the end because that's another trick that if you put them links in the middle of the thread, it does something to lower the algorithms. So that will be at the end. I will probably repost the first one with the link to the actual article in there if you guys want to go straight to that. As you know, I tend to put narratives in with it that kind of accumulates all of our learning to date. So either way, it'll be there for your use. So that's what I was playing with. When 4 o'clock rushed right up on me. Guru, I see you here. I'm going to thank you. I'll give you a mic in a little bit, but just in case you have to duck out, where'd he go? He already ducked out. Dang it. I wonder if it dropped him. Well, crap. As soon as I mentioned his name, he was gone.
He must have just popped in and maybe he's having sound issues and hopefully he'll be back.
Well, crap, because I wanted to thank him again for his suggestion on changing the name, but maybe it didn't work. At least for him. All right. So.
And your last piece. Oh, there he is.
Did he come back?
Back in. Yep.
I don't see him yet. Oh, there you go. Hey, Guru. Let me go ahead and throw him the mic and then we'll get started. Yeah. Go ahead and throw him the mic.
Okay. I threw him the mic. He should have it.
All right, Guru. I just wanted to let, he maybe not be able to talk. Guru, I wanted to let you know your suggestion worked as far as changing the title from Operation Gladio to the Colonel's Corner. And people's sound remarkably got 10 times better. We don't have near the problem with the sound that we had before. So I just wanted to thank you in person. I thanked you in the last one. You weren't here, but I wanted to do it. I saw you here and I wanted to thank you.
Nah, no problem at all, Colonel. You know, as I say, Guru takes no credit, mate. I just go with God, you know, and I think that's how we got to walk through this thing, guys. It's the only way you're going to find discernment. But look, yeah, you still not got enough in here because the world needs to know about this, Colonel, but we'll keep pushing it out there, darling, and we'll keep going. And, yeah, the people are now seeing the results of the actual Operation Gladio that you talk about. So, no, look, anything to help, guys. That's what it's great about it. We're an international, group. We're around the world and we're making a difference. And there's some good stuff coming out this morning. Let's hope Trudeau's removal or resignation and that actually comes true, guys, and we start to move forward in this thing. But yeah, thank you, Colonel. Anytime. Let's get on with the show, eh?
All right. All right. So, yes, and Guru points out we are living in real Operation Gladio. And let me just mention that. Well, I'll save that to the end. Bridget, do not let me forget to announce we have a special guest that we're going to be doing a Rumble podcast with that will be piped over to X. It will not be a space per se where we can interact with you guys, but it will be a podcast, and it's the guy that's doing all of the exposure on Guatemala. He's new to Operation Condor and Gladio, and so we're going to kind of go through his exposure in the child trafficking that he's exposed and the corruption in the Guatemalan government and the USAID. And so we're going to do kind of a side by side. Here's what Guatemala, what we did in the 1950s, and kind of bring it up. And then he's going to tell you what's going on right now. And that will be, I believe, on the 19th of December. But again, Bridget will get all the information. We'll put out little announcement meme thing like she does. I don't know how she does that either. But anyway, we'll get all of the information out there. I'm very excited to do that. And we're working behind the scenes with a couple of other people to bring you guys some more really good shows. And we will have this Friday, the second show with Bella Liberté. So anyway, okay. Chapter 26. This chapter is talking about embracing Saddam Hussein. And remember that EATSCO, EATSCO, is the name of a Edwin Wilson front company that is in the process of being taken over by retired CIA agents. And they're throwing Edwin Wilson under the bus. So that's kind of where we're at. So you've got EATSCO's partners, and business was booming. It had generated enormous amounts of cash, like tens of millions of dollars each year. Their connections gave them political power to the Reagan administration. Now, keep in mind that these companies are in the covert operations. Remember, we were talking about how he had a shipping company that basically got thrown all of the CIA shipping contracts. So there are some things that they can do with appropriated funds, like contracted shipping. That they can't buy the arms with the appropriated funds, but they can give the contracts to the shipping. So we, the taxpayers, are paying for the shipping of illicit arms around the world. And the BCCI Bank and Nugent Hand and all of the rest of them were all part of the financing of these arms deals and the money laundering associated with the profits generated from that. EATSCO is just one of many companies that were set up to do that. Their international contacts put them in a position to cash in on almost any foreign policy initiative undertaken by the new president. All of them. That means all regime change they're going to make a profit off of. Casey's and Bush's interest in off-the-books operations and inside information about each other's activities allowed Shackley, Secord, and von Marbach and Klein to continue their profit-making activities while convincing Casey and Bush that they were doing their individual bidding. Deputy Secretary of Defense Frank Carlucci supported von Marbach and Secord's initiatives as they orchestrated the secret shipments through Israel, the weapons trafficking hub, for the October surprise weapons that were promised to Iran. At the same time, Bush, with his old friend Sheikh Kamal Adam, who is the chief of intel in Saudi Arabia, that was behind the BCCI Bank as well, established the tilt towards Iraq during the Iran-Iraq War. It was an arms merchant's wildest dream. For Kamal Adem, Saddam Hussein was an annoying neighbor. Hold on a second. Hey, stop it. I have a dog that likes to take bones underneath the footstool so the other dog can't get them. That's what you hear in the background. For Kamal Adem, Saddam Hussein was the annoying neighbor who had one useful characteristic. He was a minority Sunni Muslim in a region dominated by Shiites. By brute force, he had come to dominate a country, and with the CIA's help, that had artificially forged out a tribal and religious interest, and basically kind of put those to the side so it was more of a secular state. And he did that through the use of force, which is the same thing that Assad did. He made sure everybody had to live in peace and get along. And if you didn't, you got your knuckles broke. His role model in the area happened to be Nasser in Egypt. And like Nasser, Saddam considered himself an Arab nationalist. Even though he was a hardliner on Israel, he demonstrated flexibility to the US. He had been in touch with the CIA since the 1960s and was considered an up-and-coming asset. Saddam's importance to the CIA increased dramatically with the fall of the Shah. Through Saddam, they had Arab opposition to the Camp David Accords. The personal and religious divide between his secular government and the new regime in Tehran was huge. Saddam Hussein's opposition to Islamic fundamentalism had been visible early in his career, even before he became president. After completing a campaign against the Kurds, he brutally suppressed his own Shia majority. And that's very important to understand, that there was a majority Shia, not Sunni. And just like with all of the other French and English territories that we've talked about, how they oppress the minority and put someone from the minority in charge to aggravate the crap out of them. That was the whole strategy of tension philosophy. His new effort was against the communist, the quote-unquote communist. After he became president, he banned the Communist Party, because of course you have to do that in order to get CIA support, even if there's no communist. And keep in mind, because they go on to say that he murdered some, but communists are people that just want workers' rights. It's not necessarily you and I's definition of a communist wanting to take over the government. It's people who just want a decent wage. The Soviet Union had supplied weapons for the Iraqi military in the past, but they perceived Saddam Hussein's shift to the US and his relationship with Adem and Shackley to be suspicious. Within a few months of the new Islamic government, assumptions of power in Iran, cross-border attacks and attempts to export religious quote-unquote warriors into Iraq began. The last straw for Saddam Hussein was Khomeini's allowing a secret police, which was a subordinate unit to Savak, which the US CIA set up, to infiltrate Iraq and target Saddam Hussein and other regime members for assassination. Strategy of tension. Because let me just also say at this point, the CIA had already, Saddam Hussein was beginning to have outlived his usefulness to the CIA, and they were grooming his defense minister as his replacement during the same time. Well, Saddam Hussein caught wind of that and assassinated that guy. According to one of Kamal Adem's closest advisors, Adam advised Saddam that if he became a proxy warrior against the Iranian revolutionary government, he would have the loyalty of the Saudi and the Gulf royal families and the appreciation of the Western world. Adam also pointed out that the Iranian attacks would become more brazen if he didn't do something about them. Meanwhile, Saddam had a long list of issues with his neighbors, specifically Kuwait. Saddam was convinced that Kuwait was stealing Iraqi oil, and they were. He asked Adam if Saudi Arabia would intervene on its behalf if he agreed to invade Iran. Adam from Saudi Arabia agreed that he would help Saddam Hussein take on Kuwait if he first took on Iran. So here's the Sunni guy over here, chief of intel, Adam, and he tells Saddam Hussein, the secular guy, who's keeping everybody in their box and attacking the Kurds, by the way, that Kuwait, part of this whole royal Sunni family entourage, is stealing his oil. So, hey, I'll help you combat your enemy, which is the Shia in Iran, if you'll help me combat my enemy in Kuwait. And Adam says he will, but he doesn't, because Adam in Saudi Arabia is the one that came to the United States after Saddam Hussein invades Kuwait later on and goes, oh my God, look what he did, and set him up and lied about the whole baby and incubator things. They basically took Saddam Hussein out to the cleaners after lying to him. Saddam Hussein's decision to attack Iran on August 22nd, 1980 was not made in isolation. In many ways, it was brought about by the same kind of Saudi manipulation that had pulled the US into the Afghan war against the Soviets. Well, the CIA basically set the Soviet Union up on that one, but whatever. Adam persuaded, because keep in mind, this book's written by the CIA. Kind of. Adam persuaded Hussein to attack a much larger and richer country and to start a war that was likely to end in a stalemate or worse for Iraq, because they want Iraq weakened. Once started, the war was fought on a grand scale, featuring front miles long, poisonous gas, inaccurate Sovietly made munitions, causing large numbers of casualties. Iran's US-made jets versus Iraq's French and Soviet jets attacked with fury. As the Reagan-Bush team took over, Saddam Hussein offered two attractions. The first one was that he was the ideal hedge against Iran. The second was that billions of dollars in weapon sales meant there could be profits in the war for the people that backed Reagan. The perfect man to deal with Saddam Hussein was the guy that keeps popping up through this entire book, whose name I still cannot pronounce, Sarkis, S-A-R-K-I-S, Soghanalian, Soghanalian. And remember, he's the Turkish-born Armenian who had grown up in Lebanon before violence became a way of life. But the beauty of life in volatile Beirut was shattered for Sarkis by the battles between the Muslims and the Christians. After his father, a Christian, was murdered in the 1950s, Sarkis began toting a machine gun until he found his father's killer and got revenge. He worked as a ski instructor and met and married a young American woman. When Eisenhower sent the Marines to Beirut in 1958, Sarkis met them as they landed. He proved so useful and cooperative, according to DIA control officer, Colonel Joseph Hunt, that Sarkis became one of the most valuable intelligence assets we ever had. Sarkis became a utility man for both DIA and CIA. His fluency in 7 languages made him invaluable. In 1974, Sarkis hired a young Lebanese man named Tony Carter, Kharter, as his assistant. Carter said Sarkis gave the U.S. deniability and he was effective. In other words, he could do all of the crap, and if you ever got caught doing the crap for the CIA, then nobody's going to get the blame. So they used him again and again. And according to Hunt, Sarkis's upbringing as a Turkish Armenian refugee in Lebanon gave him an authenticity that made him effective in political chaos. His real secret was that he was fearless. He could sneak arms into an African country by painting a large red cross on the side of cargo planes and then laugh about it. Kamal Adem call to Sarkis Geneva's apartment came in October 1980. A guy by, Abu Garo, which is an Arab term of respect, meaning father of Garo. Garo was the name of Sarkis's son. That's how he started the conversation. I need your help. It's Washington has came in with Iraq and to help take care of this old Khomeini bastard. Sarkis understood that when Kamal Adem called, it was a Saudi royal family calling because they funded everything and he was in charge of doing their bidding. Sarkis had done vast amounts of business with Adem and understood that if he came to the middleman for Iraq, there could be a huge profit. Kamal said a man with close ties to Saddam would call me. He said I should show him a good time and be generous. Sarkis said he still had his doubts. There were power centers around Saddam. If you crossed one of them, you ended up in trouble. Figuring out who the man was connected to would be important. When I told Kamal this worried me, he said to relax. The man is not an Iraqi. I told Adem to send him and we'd see what we could do. Sarkis used a suite at the Geneva Hotel that was understated but very expensive. Sarkis' personal servant, Kim, and his assistant, Tony Carter, saw to all of the details and organized a dinner for the visitor. The visitor's name was Harrot, Harot, Kayabalian, Kayabalian, who proved not to be an expert in munitions, but he did know all about dressing spiffy. He was from Armenia as well. There's a lot of them in the arms trade. Kayabalian had been recruited out of Lebanon as well as Saddam Hussein's personal tailor. Kayabalian was a big man who was not intimidated at all by Saddam. He conveyed sophistication to Saddam without making him uncomfortable. CIA psychiatrists believed that Kayabalian came to fill a father role for Saddam Hussein, who had a difficult, poor upbringing. After his father was murdered, his abusive uncle married his mother. Saddam had bravado and cunning as a young man, but he had no sophistication. His forays into outside world included brief stints in exile as a law student at the University of Cairo. The talents, hold on a second. Okay, we'll take care of that. I've got the bow now. Since I was rudely interrupted. All right, so anyway, he goes out to, and isn't that kind of interesting that all of these people end up being doctors and lawyers in this whole, Castro and Che Guevara and Assad. It's crazy. So the CIA wrote in the 1960s about Saddam Hussein, quote, was to have potential as a leader, rough edges had to be smoothed down, unquote. That's what a sophisticated tailor could do for you. No doubt they sent that guy too. When Saddam Hussein took formal power as the president of Iraq in 1979, he dressed the part, and Kayabelian was basically behind the whole thing. So Sarkis hit it off with Kayabalian the first night they met. Sarkis was a dazzling host. After several nights of expensive dinners and parties, Geneva's best, and exclusive club hopping, the two men got down to business. Iraq was being flooded with offers from corrupt and phony arms dealers. They needed one reliable person to work with the defense minister to supply the war effort. What was coming from the Soviet Union was not enough. Saddam wanted to reach out to the United States, and if Sarkis would cooperate, it would be good for him too. Sarkis offered to come to Iraq to meet the defense minister to figure out what hardware and ammunition were needed. That first trip to Iraq opened all kinds of doors. Sarkis was invited to a farm in southern Iraq owned by the defense minister, whose name was Adnan, Adnan, and his last name was Khayrallah. We're going to call him Aden. Was important to the United States, said Robert Crowley, one of the CIA officers that's material helped write this book. The CIA was convinced that at some point he could challenge Saddam Hussein, but he didn't. And he did not have the emotional baggage that Saddam Hussein did. Sarkis was introduced to the top officers of the Iraqi army and was given a complete intelligence briefing of how the war was going with Iran. To the shock of U.S. officials, Sarkis strolled into the American embassy and introduced himself to the staff. In the next few years, he would become a familiar figure with the charge d'affaires, a guy by the name of Thomas Ingleton. Sarkis had access to everyone, including the president. He had the run of the country because he was going to help them try to win the war. What Sarkis found was a country that had started a war but had no way of finishing it. As he brought hunting rifles as gifts to the defense minister and others, Sarkis learned of a power structure. He learned that Saddam Hussein, like Hitler, fancied himself as a general and a expert tactician. Aden was more open and far less dour than all of the other men around Saddam Hussein. His power came from the fact that he was Saddam's cousin and his brother-in-law. But as soon as the Aden started to trust Sarkis, he began to explain to him that Saddam Hussein was capable of turning on him over literally nothing. Aden also warned Sarkis to watch out for Hassan Kamal, Kamel, the feared and powerful head of the secret police and Saddam's son-in-law. Don't get on his wrong side. Sarkis understood that the information he was acquiring in Iraq was invaluable, especially if he shared it with the CIA. One official, Edwin Derijan, Derijan, was a savvy foreign policy expert and former ambassador to Syria, who was serving as an aide to George Bush and James Baker, was sold on Sarkis's ability and his connections. He strongly suggested that Sarkis should get a hearing, and in the end, DIA, State Department, and White House officials all got briefings from him. And see, I love the way these guys like shove all of this, and we've talked about this before. Yes, the Department of Defense knew all about it, but you're setting it up. Between 1980 and 82, the heavy-set arms dealer convinced the Reagan and Bush national security team that he was the conduit into Iraq. The White House was so amazed at Sarkis' contact that they had Oliver North and other people asking who knew him and where did his connections come from. What they learned was that he had serious connections to King Hussein in Jordan and had successfully operated throughout all of Africa and Latin America, which tells you he's part of Operation Gladio. But the most important connections he had was Kamal Adem, the chief of intel in Saudi Arabia. He was considered a businessman who always delivered. The former CIA officials advising Bush suggested that the way to control Sarkis was to get him under serious intelligence discipline through the agency. He already was. So they had Murphy, Bush's chief of staff, Admiral Daniel Murphy, telling me I should cooperate with the agency. He said we should find a way for me to work with them. Tony Carter helped his boss secretly move some of the most important former and current American officials into and out of Iraq on private flights. Sarkis also used his plane to move top officers in Saddam's secret police and his intelligence agency into and out of the United States for special training. We trained Saddam Hussein's top lieutenants. Sarkis says, the truth is the only reason they came to Iraq was the money. We all thought this was going to be a balancing of the Middle East foreign policy. America could help build Iraq as it had built Israel. Iraq was the most Western and secular Arab country, maybe next to Syria, but not anymore because we destroyed it. When I came into the picture in 1980, Iraq's most powerful neighbor, Saudi Arabia, had promised support. The Israelis had been secretly selling weapons to the Shah's regime for years. Israel selling weapons to Iran and had no desire to give it up. According to Sarkis, so the entire Middle East became a balancing act. Adem fighting the fundamentalists through the Iraqi surrogates in the Iran-Iraq war and tying up Moscow in Afghanistan by assisting the fundamentalist Mujahideen. The Israelis continued to secretly supply Iran to maintain the other side of the balance. The entire time, we're giving Israel aid to do just that. Sarkis does not dispute Saddam's character flaws, but he says in 1980, Iraq had a strong middle class. Women had equality. Iraq had the highest standard of living in the Middle East outside of Israel. Then the Saudis sucked the U.S. into persuading Iraq to undertake a war in Iran. The Reagan-Bush people wanted to please the Saudi family. I soon found out the reason I was there was to make business deals for Bush's friends. And believe me, he had big friends. Each week, according to his own date book, Vice President George Bush was briefed in detail about the war between Iran and Iraq by Shackley and other members of his Safari Club, which again is an off-book CIA covert operation. Sarkis routinely went to Washington and stayed in large suites in Madison Hotel. For a while, it was a successful collaboration with Sarkis. Saddam kept his end of the bargain, but the CIA and the U.S. did not. With every trip to Iraq, Sarkis' relationship with Defense Minister Adem whatever his last name is, Creyralla, became closer. On one trip to Geneva, some of Sarkis's Israeli friends quoted several Iranian generals as saying that if the war went on, Iran would lose. The U.S. had placed an embargo on spare parts that Iran needed for the sophisticated U.S.-built arsenal that Israel had been selling to it. Sarkis's Israeli friends made it clear that they had been given the green light to supply those spare parts to Iran. Sarkis was smart enough to come back to Baghdad with the useful intelligence. He asked to speak privately with the defense minister and informed him that Iran was obtaining classified equipment from Israel while the U.S. looked the other way. This pissed off Aden, the defense minister in Iraq, and he asked Sarkis if he could prove it. Sarkis asked if the Iraqis had captured any Iranian tanks. Aden hurried him along to his French-built helicopter, and they flew north from his farm to Basra. Well, his farm was near Basra, sorry. They flew to Taj, Tajy, one of the most secret military facilities in all of Iraq. The chopper sat down in a field where there were several dozen captured tanks. The 300-pound arms dealer started by crawling all over the British-made Centurion tanks with the right tread blown off. Sarkis found what he was looking for. After checking a few more tanks, he informed the defense minister that they were all equipped with the latest classified American night vision technology sold to Iran after the Shah had left power. Sarkis vowed to find the same technology for the Iraqi fleet of tanks. According to Sarkis, he contacted Kamal Adem, who suggested that the devices could be exported from the U.S. to England and then re-exported to Iraq. Sarkis succeeded in getting the U.S. to send the classified parts to a British company called United Scientific. But then the Iraqis said United Scientific was not acceptable to them unless a member of Margaret Thatcher's family accompanied Sarkis when he met with the Iraqi representatives. Sarkis arranged through Kamal Adem for Mark Thatcher, Margaret Thatcher's son, who, by the way, was an arms dealer, to be present in London's hotel room when the deal was made. Sarkis then arranged for shipments of mortars from Bulgaria, arms capital of NATO, and France. Of course, it was still Soviet Union at the time. Artillery from South Africa, which was getting illegal arms shipments from Israel as well, and helicopters with spare parts from France and Italy. You know, NATO. For the first time, the Iraqis had some realistic hope of victory. As the equipment started flowing into Iraq, Sarkis had a surprise visit from Herat Karabalian. What about my commission? Sarkis remembers the tailor asking him. Karabalian had a second important friend in Iraq, the chief of the secret police, Hassan Kamal, who Sarkis had already been warned about. According to Tony Carter, Sarkis worried that Kamal's agents might learn about his meeting with the former Israeli defense minister, Shimon Peres. What Sarkis feared the most, this is a quote, what Sarkis feared the most was not the Israeli meeting, but that his meeting with Iranian officials who wanted him to get spare parts for their American-made airplanes. He thought Kamal would have him killed if he ever found out, unquote. As Sarkis delivered more and more equipment, the danger seemed to recede. He followed up with the Iranians by referring them to Augusta, a large Italian defense contractor with connections to American-built weapons. I prayed that the Iraqis would never find out, Sarkis said. So that's it for that chapter. It gets us finished a little earlier, but the next chapter is too long to start. It's not a long chapter, but it's too long to finish in 15 minutes. So we'll probably be able to do 2 tomorrow. And both of them, one of which deals with the killing of Anwar Sadat, and the other one has to do with getting Edwin Wilson tricked into coming back to the United States so he can get arrested. So they're going to be dicey, very interesting information in those, and lots more names for us to follow up on. Okay, so what we learned today is, as usual, the CIA cannot be trusted. They lie out one side of their mouth and then they lie out the other side of their mouth every single time. And then in just about every piece of writing, they blame the DIA and the NSA and anybody else that they can blame inside of America for not following up on something that they've already lied about. So that's kind of the reoccurring theme in this particular book.
And then they say it's all classified information to protect their sources and means in order to cover.
Correct. Correct. Yeah, that's kind of their go-to rubber stamp national security. You can't see any of the stuff we did, but every single time it's them lying, whether it's lying to Saddam Hussein or lying to Iran, selling the other one out, basically feeding the whole strategy of tension, where the bottom line, when you step back and go out to the 30,000 foot look, is there's a shitload of weapons being sold and there's a shitload of people getting rich, and none of it is us. But we're the ones taking the bullets in the field. That's kind of the bottom line. So, anybody have any comments? Anybody want a mic? You can come on up.
And I have to say that they should be disbanded, destroyed, labeled with a scarlet letter so that they can never be gainfully employed again if they've been caught in any of these operations, and their children and their nephews and cousins and brothers.
It would be my recommendation that they become our fruit pickers.
That would be good.
They can pick our lettuce, they can pick our oranges. When we that's what the left is worried about, that there's not going to be anybody to garden and there's not going to be anybody to pick their vegetables. So we have tens of thousands of intelligence people that are going to be jobless if I was in charge. And I think we could retrain them all, not to code, but to work outside. They need some fresh air. They need to be doing something useful for humanity, and not scheduling the assassination of a head of state or the mass murder of entire villages.
How about coal mines? You know, in the coal mines.
Well, I don't know. Labor might have something to say with that, because now there might be actual real labor unions, not the fake ones that the CIA controls or the mafia controls, that are allowed to, they have standards, Bridget. Labor unions, miners have standards, and I'm not sure these people would actually measure up to their standards. But I think people would enjoy being able to pursue stable employment in fields that they choose to go into without being labeled a communist just because they want to be paid more than 86 cents a day. But that's just my opinion.
But that wouldn't allow them to work from home.
It would not allow them to work from home unless you put them cabins up on the big farms, and we can certainly build them a tiny house so they could literally work from their backyard.
So long as we have somebody overseeing them, because I don't know if I want them touching my food. Just saying.
All right, touche.
One of the things that came up earlier today, not to jump subject, but kind of sideline, the United Healthcare supposed shooter disappeared for 3 months, dropped off the map for 3 months. Is it just me, or does that sound eerily familiar?
Like he was going to training?
Might have been. I'm just saying.
Well, we do know that there is a particular country that has a 3-month assassin training program. So I'd like to see it. Huh?
And a specific 3-letter agency that actually has their counter intel operation in Pennsylvania?
Yes, yes. So I would really like to see his passport, although we do have the operation in Pennsylvania that does take people in residence and trains them. They have barracks on the grounds.
Right. I'd like to see a head count for the CIA on that day.
Well, but Bridget, they don't do that themselves. They have contracted assassins. A head count's not going to do you any good. Money, follow the money might do you some good. They always, rule number 1 is plausible deniability.
Right.
And that's why just with the whole drone thing, plausible deniability. They can tell you they have no worry that that's a foreign. They can tell you unequivocally it is not a foreign, which we were joking today about the lights on them. Like somebody was saying, "Oh my God, they're UFOs." And my husband looked at me, and because I was watching this video, and he looked at me and he goes, "Really? Really? You need lights to get from Mars to Earth?" And I had to laugh.
I tell you what, hasn't it had I threw her the mic, but she may not be able to speak right now, but he brought up an incredibly great line on the predictive programming kind of psyop type deal, on how it just so happens that the UFO stuff was being talked about in Congress, and it just so happens right after that, suddenly these drones start appearing, and just so happens that people start calling them UFOs. It just so happens, I don't know if you saw that with the Rosie O'Donnell coming out and saying she believes it's all part of the mothership and blah, blah, blah. Like the best they can do with interstellar travel is drones.
So one of the most interesting posts I saw all day today was Absolute Conviction 1776 posting the post by Biden talking about banning assault weapons. And the last time he posted that, there was a school shooting, and he posted it like Friday, and there was a school shooting today. Or yesterday he posted it, however it worked out date wise. So that's very, very chilling. As far as that whole predictive, and it's not really predictive programming, it is them sending signals to each other that they have been given the go ahead on a particular operation. And if people are paying enough attention, where they're being able to now intersect those communications, it's very interesting that exactly what they were trying to set up, which is a civilian, well educated based on training that they have received over the internet and open source information, being able to pick out patterns and do the research to understand the correlation to these events. And then they start noticing those patterns, which is a huge deal. Miles, go ahead.
Oh, good afternoon. Speaking of following the money, Christina Freeland resigned today.
Right.
And that's really interesting. She was supposed to come out with her budget. And I wonder if these tariffs are causing some issues. But look, if you look into her history, her family, I'm glad she's gone.
Right.
You probably know who I'm talking about. I don't know if the audience know who's Christina Freeland is.
Do you want to tell them? You're welcome to tell them.
Well, she's the finance minister in Canada.
Well, she was. She's like the deputy now, right? She's like the vice president. Yeah.
No, I'm paying close attention to it. She was the one that was laughing when they closed the truckers' bank accounts down during a press conference. So, I mean, she's a pretty evil person. And there's something going on behind the scenes that we don't know about. I don't know if Trudeau's going to last too much longer either. He probably got talked to or spanked down in Mar-a-Lago.
So, well, I honestly think that's why she quit. That's my opinion. I don't have anything to verify that. But Freeland has the quintessential CIA background, just so that you guys know that. She's a Rhodes Scholar. She obviously spent time at Oxford. She is a quote unquote journalist, and she worked for all of the CIA funded media. She worked at Financial Times, she worked at The Economist, and she worked at Washington Post. And so there's little about her, and she's a fluent Russian speaker. There's little about her that does not, in my opinion, scream CIA. So that's why I think, and like you said, I mean, her family has ties. Her maternal grandfather was involved in a Nazi newspaper during World War II.
Operation Paperclip.
So, well, I mean, Paperclip was more the scientist piece of that, right?
I don't think so. I think it was anybody that they wanted to pursue their agenda. Okay. The Fourth Reich.
Yeah, I thought that was more these guys fall more in the line of Mockingbird as far as being paid intelligence assets to print what they're told to print, in my opinion. And yeah, it's just very interesting. She also speaks according to this one website I'm looking at, French, Ukrainian, and Italian, which tells me she's an intelligence operative. So anyway.
Well, she was banned from Russia. She's not allowed to go to Russia.
Yeah.
Because she had gone to Russia. She's fluent in Russian, and she had gone to Russia to learn how to speak Russian. So as a student.
Yeah, it's called an immersion program. Yeah.
Well, she was a quote student.
That's what that is. An immersion program is when a student goes full time. The Air Force has like hundreds of people that go through immersion programs, and it's where we send them to a language school, like out at Monterey, and then they go spend 6 months to a year in country, whatever country they're trying to learn the language of. And my best friend's husband was a fluent Russian speaker, and he went through an immersion program where he lived in Russia for 6 months after he graduated to get conversationally fluent. Because, you know, when you come out of a language school, you're fluent in a proper use of that, but not necessarily a conversational level. And it's called an immersion program.
Well, they showed her the door. She's not allowed into Russia.
So that tells me she was 100% an intelligence asset. And during, during her immersion program, whatever she was doing and people that she were talking to or whatever, showed the cards that she was an intelligence asset and she was asked to leave. And we've had Air Force people who fall into that boat. And I mean, Russia's not stupid. They know that all of our linguistic people are intelligence people. But where they draw the line is you actually overtly participating in that intelligence act. Like my girlfriend's husband was an intel officer. He went through this program, although he's been a Russian speaker the entire time he was in the Air Force. He went through the formal immersion program, I think at the end of his time as a major. And they know they're all intelligence. That's why we have linguists. And as long as you just go over there to live for 6 months and be a linguist, they're fine with that. But if they catch you actually doing intelligence operations in their country, you will likely get thrown in jail. The best you could hope for is you get thrown out of the country. Guru, go ahead.
Yeah, just to back up on what you're saying about the witch from Canada there. Australia, I think, don't quote me guys, but I think it's over 100 journalists, politicians, so all part of the Mockingbird media, as Colonel just said, have been barred from Russia. So we've got over 100 in our establishment here in Australia that can no longer go to Russia. They have been barred. So yeah, says something.
Wow. But y'all have, that's the one thing that I learned researching Nugent Hand. I had no idea the large extent of mafia that y'all have in Australia. It's huge.
Yeah, the place is a cesspool, mate. I'm telling you, you get above community level and it just becomes a cesspool, and unfortunately people on the street have been smelling shit for that long. They just don't know they're in a cesspool, and that's how it is. But yeah, no, it's crazy over here. Big infiltration, in the Australian Parliament and journalism for sure.
Wow, 100. And there's,
I think Guru should be here every day just so we can listen to him talk.
I know, me too. So 100, and they're still pretending to be journalists. That's crazy.
Journalists, politicians, some of those are ex-polies. I'll get the list for you, Colonel. I'll get it over to you, mate. Yep.
Wow.
I'll go back and search it and I'll get it over. You can have a look. But yeah, I'm sure it's over 100. Don't quote me on that, but I think it was a very large figure, and it come out in anyway, I've got it. I've put it on the show, so I'll find it for you and get it over to you. You can have a quick look.
All right, I appreciate it. I'd like to match that up to the research I did into Nugent Hand, because of course Nugent Hand happened back in the 90s, and then you look at some of these people today with new information and new eyes on where they all end up, and it's sometimes quite shocking. If you start looking up some of these people, like I found out some of the people that were involved in some of this stuff, quote unquote, suicided themselves or whatever. And it kind of just lends more authenticity to some of these books that makes these, a lot of times they will give you all of the circumstantial evidence because they don't have a declassified document that says this guy did this. However, when a lot of the exposure does come more than they are comfortable with, you find out that like so-and-so, some not even on purpose, generally not on purpose. Somebody gets arrested for, speeding, and they have this in their car, and then they get found out that they're involved in this, that, or the other, and things start kind of like tumbling out. And then to save their own soul, their own hide, they say, oh, well, I'm working on this or I'm working on that. And then they end up getting, suicided in jail or let out and then mysteriously ran over on the side of the road kind of thing. And unfortunately, that happens way too often. And I think one of the reasons that happens way too often is because we have way too many people that were brought here that are basically part of a network to do this kind of wet works inside the United States. Miles, go ahead.
Yeah, a quick sidebar on Canada. So back during the lockdowns, there was a lot of spaces talking about the trucker strike. And we had some really intelligent people on these spaces. There'll probably be some Canadian spaces tonight you might want to listen to as far as the political stuff that's going on. But what was happening in Detroit was really interesting. And I did some research on the bridge because they had a bunch of semis parked in that bridge. And there was another way, like cars could go on another, there was another pathway, like a tunnel that they could get into Canada, but they didn't want any commerce going across. And so like I said, I did some research on that bridge and I went, holy crap, that bridge could fall down. They could do a false flag on that bridge because it was so old, because like I'm in Minneapolis and a bridge fell in what was 2010 here. Or maybe it was 2008. I can't remember, but it was a while ago. It was a freeway bridge that rusted and they didn't have the proper rivets as far as, you know, it was in an inferior bridge and they were working on it. Bridges are supposed to be flexible, and they had a whole bunch of construction equipment on that 35W bridge crossing the Mississippi. I mean, people died when that thing fell down. And so I contacted some people. Sure enough, a day later, the word got out, get off of that bridge, because they could run a false flag and, you know, kill people and really start like an incident. The bridge going from Detroit into Canada.
Right. That's crazy. Okay. So again, I'm going to post a few threads this evening that will be using this new tool that Bridget found, and we're going to see how that works out. So Bridget was saying that some of them have like a little trailer at the end because X requires them, if you're using a third-party tool to do your threads. So obviously you guys understand that the production of those threads is very time consuming, because you're having to, like I do it both ways. I write the whole thing out and then I just cut and paste it over. But there's a lot of clicks involved. And then if I'm actually reading and I'm posting as I go, that's obviously even more time consuming. So I think that so here's kind of the sidebar to this whole thing. Grok does not do a lot of AI research off Twitter or off X. It compiles, like instantaneously, information that is posted on X, and it gives you a selection of posts where it found that information. So our putting all of this Operation Gladio material from 72 books into long threads is critical for Grok to be able to expose with us all of this information. So if somebody goes in and says, hey, what's this guy all about? Well, Colonel Towner says this guy's a crook, or Colonel Towner says this guy's part of the CIA. Our information, if we put it in there, which is why I'm so, because I've had people say, oh, why don't you do a long article, or why don't you post on Substack? I do all of that. But I'm dead set, dedicated to posting this stuff on X so it gets the most exposure. A lot of people don't read stuff on Substack. A lot of people aren't interested in going over and reading as a matter of fact, let's check that out. I posted 2 articles and now I'm going to have to try to find them. Articles. All right. So I posted an article on BCCI. Okay. And I don't know how, let's see if I go down here. I don't know how to tell that anybody ever even saw it. If I click on the one that's the Gladio overview, and I did, what's the other one I did? I did one on, oh, here's the published ones. There they are. Never mind. I did the one on the background of fluoride. So I posted it on the November 3rd. And if I go down to the bottom of it, there's no way for me to see how many people even read it. I don't know. I don't know how you tell how many people read it.
Hang on, working on it.
Okay. Oh, is this it? Yeah, 114. That's nothing. I just found it. That's nothing. 114. So nobody clicks over to the article and reads it. They'll read it if you put it. So if you go to, let's see, Bridget showed me how to do this. If I go to my analytics and I look at, she's going to be so impressed that I'm going to be able to find this. If I look at content and I look at impressions, because I know there's a way that you can set it so that you look at the most at the top.
You're on it? Yep.
But I don't know how to do that. So some of them get 3,000 views. Some got, like I had one that got 7,000 views. And you get 100 views by doing an article. That's why, I mean, I don't even know whether Grok picks up on the article. So I'm not doing the articles. I'm going to put them in threads. And Bridget spent the better part of the day trying to find an app that I can write it. I can cut and paste it into this app and it builds the thread. The problem that I see with all of the ones that I think she sent me too, and then I looked at a third one on my own, they don't number them. And so you're just going to have to like click them or.
There is an option on that. There is a way of using those apps to do that.
Okay.
But we're still working on the details.
All right. Well, the one that I actually downloaded,
Hey, can I jump in for a second?
Yeah.
Because I just saw it and I don't want to forget to tell you all. Did you see that they just found a drone in New York? Sitting on the sidewalk?
You cut out. They saw a drone in New York. Where?
They have, it was sitting on the sidewalk. So there's a photo of one of the police officers that was responding that's holding this big ass drone. These things are big.
Funny. Yeah, they think they were big as cars, some of them.
Yeah, they're as big as a small car.
But apparently lightweight to pick up. That's crazy.
So anyway, if you guys have any experience with any of these things, I'd appreciate any information that you have on them. The one that I did use for, and I will post something from it once we get off, I saved one as a draft. It's called Thread Creator. And I did not see where it allows me to number them, but I mean, obviously I could go back and number them myself, but I did, they only allow you to do 30 at a time. And so I will do what we were doing yesterday and I'll put part 1, part 2, part 3. And then when I get them all posted, I will do a composite post and have the links to each of those posts. So you can use the composite post to find all of them. And so all you have to do is bookmark, which will help us anyway, bookmark that composite post. And then you can go back and keep finding part 1, part 2, part 3, and then you just follow the thread all the way down. So whether or not they're numbered is not that big of a deal, especially, you know, a lot of people repost the stuff. They don't comment a lot on it. So you're not going to be, oh, where's her next post kind of thing. So that's just some of.
And the reason why we're doing that is because whenever she goes over 30 posts on a thread, it will actually lock up her account and you won't be able to see any of the other posts. You know, again, we're just doing the dance around this algorithm and finding ways. You know, they're good, but we're better because of all of you guys.
Well,
you know?
Bridget's better. I'm not. I don't even have any idea. She just calls me up and says, hey, I just found out that if you do the 30 posts, this is what happens. And I'm like, are you kidding? I do like 100. How do we not know this? But she figures it all out, because every time you guys say, hey, the thing is broke, or hey, I can't hear you, or whatever, Bridget immediately goes to work and does whatever she does and finds out why that is. And I have no clue why any of that is. And I don't even know where she looks, and I don't care. All I know is she calls me and says, okay, now you need to start doing it this way. And I start doing it this way. So that's that. All right.
And the rest of your bookcase is apparently coming tomorrow.
Oh, well, shoot.
Yeah, it got put, apparently it's sent back to, anyway, going to be sent back out tomorrow.
Cool. All right. So if, Jeff, did you have something? Oh, no, I guess he had his hands up. He can come up and talk. Maybe he just dropped out. Maybe we lost him.
Yeah, hang on. Oh. Yep, it looks like it.
Oh, well, crap. All right. So,
yep, he was there and then up and then gone.
Yeah. And again, I've downloaded the, you weren't in here, I don't think yet when I said that. I had downloaded the update right before I came on, and it still kicked me out within 30 seconds of starting the space. So, but at least we're not.
Hopefully,
go ahead.
Yeah, hopefully they're getting this a little better under control. I know.
I don't see it.
New updates every time or doing something.
If I have to change, the name of my space in order to allow people to hear, they've not fixed anything.
Agreed.
So anyway, but like you said, we're going to be here to fight another day. All right. Well,
hey, big shock. That shooter in Wisconsin is a trans.
Oh my God.
Big shock. Right? Yeah, and there's a manifesto apparently. I don't know. I just signed on, to be honest with you. I've been busy all day. But yeah, there's a trans shooter in Wisconsin. So on hormones and also the medication. And there's also a manifesto.
So we talked about.
Yeah, I did post it on the billboard.
Okay. We talked about this at the beginning of the show, in that Absolute Conviction 1776 noticed a pattern that when Biden posts that big black meme that says, we took away assault rifles, we can do it again. The last time he posted that, and he has the dates on his profile, and I reposted his post on with a comment on it. The last time he posted that meme, the next day there was a school shooting. He just reposted it yesterday, and we have a school shooting. So
it's predictive programming. It's some sort of MK Ultra thing.
It is definitely a communication to a shooter, whatever the mechanism. Yeah. So if these people are being psychologically treated, and that meme, although, it's weird, I don't know how you would ensure that they saw it. If that's the case, it's almost more like someone is waiting for that signal, that is looking for it. And then whoever the person's controller is does whatever they've been psychologically programmed as a trigger to react to, and they're activated. That's kind of the way people describe that operation. Again, not an expert in it, but know that there are people that talk about that operating that way. And that's basically scary as hell. But their worst nightmare is us noticing those patterns. And that's why pattern recognition and understanding what's going on around you is so critically important, and basically why we do what we do. So, anyway, on that note.
Absolutely. And I posted that on the pill. I posted that.
Oh, awesome. Yeah, thank you, Bridget. Yeah, on that note, I think unless anybody else has any last comments. All right, we're out of here. Have a nice evening. I will look real quick. We don't have Stellar or Frog in here, so I'm not sure if we're on tonight. You can look for that around 8:30 if we are, and 8:15.
I thought we scheduled already.
It is? Okay, great. So
it is scheduled. They did schedule it.
Okay, I haven't seen it.
Yeah.
All right. So tomorrow night, the 17th, I will be on The Missing Link again. I've been on his show a couple of different times. Basically just an overall interview. Great guy, love the show. He's overseas and very interested in keeping up on what's going on. Then on Wednesday, we have obviously the 9:30 Alpha Warrior program. And on Thursday at 11:30, and I'll have to get with War Hamster to reschedule our show, is Ryan Mata. So Ryan Mata, you spell his last name Matta, on the 19th. He is the one that's exposing the Guatemalan child trafficking. And we are going to do a show with him on Rumble that will simultaneously broadcast into X, but we won't be live like we are right now on X. Basically the one-way feed thing. And so that's going to come up on 11:30 on Thursday. And then we have Isabella back at 4 p.m. on Friday to talk about her local experience online, finding out information on people that try to do bad things online to patriots. So anyway, that's kind of our lineup for this week. Just as an overview, of course, each day will kind of remind everybody of what those appearances are. And again, we just appreciate everybody being here and helping us get the word out. Again, you guys are the best ambassadors in the world, reposting our information and hashtagging us in the areas where you look at other people's stuff and where it applies. I just can't get over how good you guys are. So I just got a flash. The CIA and Congress, a book just got delivered. Oh my God. I'm going to run out of room, Bridget. Anyway, how apropos that I get a book delivered while we're on the podcast. Anyway, thanks for being here, guys. We will see you tonight at 8:15 and tomorrow at 4 o'clock. Bye. Okay, so I won't forget today to turn off the podcast because I'm learning to leave it open so I can see myself and not forget. So, yes, Sherry, me too. I love the fact that we're going to be able to get him on. and share the long history that Guatemala has and all of the crazy stuff that we've been responsible for there. Yeah, it's crazy. It's just crazy. So, really, really looking forward to that. That's going to be one of the probably emotionally the worst show, but also the best show as far as making an impact and letting everybody have the opportunity to hear from him interviewed by someone who understands how we got to where we're at. And I do think that's going to be a huge difference. So thank you guys for being here. See you tonight on Spaces or here tomorrow for our next chapter. Bye.